I woke up inside a CEO romance as the CEO's female secretary, a supporting character at that. My name is Angela Keller. Strictly speaking, I didn't transmigrate into a book, I just realized I exist inside one. And that book is a dog-blood angst fest titled After the Madam Left, President Jones entered the wife-chasing crematorium. The male lead is my boss, Jason Chris. As a child he was saved by the heroine, Susan Clark, but he mistook his savior for Susan's younger sister, Rachel Clark. Later Rachel had a car accident, and all the evidence pointed to Susan. Jason threw Susan into prison. After she was released, the two of them tangled endlessly, until Jason discovered the truth, regretted everything, and began his hellish, wife-chasing crematorium, which actually succeeded. Why do I believe such a melodramatic tale? Because my boss Jason genuinely doesn't like the boss's wife, Susan. The one he likes is, in fact, her sister Rachel. And Jason really did send the boss's wife to prison. As for me, the whole plot has nothing to do with this tiny supporting role. I was only supposed to show up for a few chapters early on, one of the crowd sneering at the heroine for pining after the male lead. Only, there's a big problem now. The book's developed a bug. I never mock the heroine, and I don't pine after the male lead. The one I like is the male lead's 24/7, on-call, all-purpose assistant and bodyguard, Chris Jones. Yes, that man who always stands behind every overbearing CEO. Why am I into him, you ask? Don't be fooled by how he usually copies his boss's vibe, strangers keep out, written across his face, ruthless in the way he handles things. He's actually impossibly cute. If he says a single sentence to me, his ears go pink. If we accidentally brush against each other, he goes ramrod stiff and glassy-eyed, his words starting to trip over themselves. This is textbook pure-hearted boy behavior. I strongly suspect he likes me too. The book says he's cold and unfeeling, like a machine. But to me, Angela, that's nothing. Sisters, I'm going to pursue love. Okay, I was still too naive. We've already reached the part where Susan gets out of prison and runs. Jason, upon hearing the news, flies into a shame-fueled rage. You damned woman, you dare run. He immediately sent Chris to catch her. Now I can't even see Chris's shadow. Jason himself is in the office dealing with company matters, and I honestly don't see any secret, smoldering love for the heroine on his face. Heh. Pa. Scumbag. I'm sitting in my desk chair, tapping a key every now and then, humming under my breath. I'm this bored because no one dares bother Jason right now, anyone who goes in comes out in tears. TCH, so in love with her and he still hasn't noticed. Ugh, I miss my little Chris. I wonder if he's hungry, if he's eaten, if he's caught the heroine yet. Staring at my phone, I suddenly have a bold idea. I pick it up, open WeChat, and find Chris's chat, the one still stuck on, I've accepted your friend request, we can start chatting now. What should I send? Hi. Hi what hi? That's idiotic. Assistant Jones, have you eaten? Eat, 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 why is that all I think about? Help. What can I send that won't be awkward but still polite? I fuss with drafts on WeChat, trimming and retyping, totally unaware that on the other end Chris keeps seeing the other party is typing pop up, getting so nervous he's about to cry. Tisk, why is my phone lagging? I start tapping wildly. Nothing responds, until I hit video call, and suddenly, as if struck by divine lightning, the call starts dialing, it's dialing. Stunned by that flash of inspiration, I freeze. Before I can hang up, the video connects. Jones, Assistant Jones, good morning. I give an awkward smile and a stiff little wave. Good morning? It's high noon. I want to strangle myself. He looks at me from the other end in a black suit, those long eyes cool and unreadable, lips pressed into a line. I notice his eyes are a little bloodshot. That bastard Jason definitely isn't letting Chris rest properly. Serves him right to end up in a wife-chasing crematorium. Right then, Jason, who's in his office reading a file, suddenly sneezes. Chris glances at me, then lets his gaze slide elsewhere. If you look closely, he seems a bit at a loss. Secretary Keller, gee good morning. Head slightly lowered, he doesn't dare meet my eyes. Even through the screen, his ears are visibly red, like he's shy. Oh my god, this is exactly my kryptonite. I'm so overwhelmed by the cuteness that I must be wearing a doting expression. The moment Chris finally looks up and catches it, he hurriedly hangs up. Meanwhile, on the other side, Chris is hugging his phone. The cool mask won't hold, one hand props his forehead as the corner of his mouth lifts into a laugh. Angela is just too adorable. With that, the fatigue of the past few days vanishes. He stares at the video call log, under 5 minutes, and quietly takes a screenshot. It's his first video call with Angela. In his gallery there's also a screenshot from when Angela first added him on WeChat. He didn't even use WeChat before. When Angela asked to add him, he panicked and registered on the spot so he could accept. That's why he only has Angela on WeChat. Just one is enough, hee hee. There's also a photo of them eating together, actually a company dinner where they happen to sit side by side. And a shot of the coffee Angela gave him. I gave one to every employee, don't ask, survival skills. Looking at the photos, Chris smiles, then grows a little forlorn. He and Angela shouldn't have just these, there should be more, so much more. Young man, your thoughts are getting dangerous. Left with a deadline, I'm bewildered. After thinking it over, the only explanation is that Chris was stunned by my beauty. Sigh. What a little cutie. I'm starting to realize Chris seems very invested in staying true to his book persona, but he probably hasn't noticed how terrible his acting is, or that his ears and mouth refuse to cooperate with it. The next day. I'm still a diligent corporate drone, but something's different today, there's a show to watch. Our heroine got caught on the run and was brought back, to the company. From my prime viewing spot, I watch Chris in front with a slow-moving woman following behind. That's the heroine, Susan. Her head is bowed, her face paper white. Even wrapped up tightly, you can tell how thin she is. 3 years in prison ground a woman's dignity and love to powder. The light in her eyes is gone, like stagnant water. She moves like the Walking Dead. What? You're wondering how I suddenly got so literary? Oh, I just copied straight from the book. That doesn't count as plagiarism, right? Honestly, I only have eyes for Chris. I stare at him the whole way, so much that he starts walking in sync arms and legs, but this blockhead refuses to meet my gaze, eyes fixed straight ahead. Fine. For the sake of his character setting, I quietly pull my gaze back so I don't throw him off. When they reach the boss's office, I look up again. Chris steps to the side of the door and makes a courteous gesture to Susan. Madam, the boss is waiting for you inside. Not a ripple of emotion. Right now, Chris is exactly as the book describes, an icy machine. He seems to be like this with everyone else. A flicker finally stirs in Susan's otherwise flat eyes. She looks at Chris, a little desolate. Assistant Jones, why? She begged him with everything she had to let her go, and still she was brought back. What difference is there between here and that other place, except that behind this door is a man even more terrifying than that place? Poor thing. My heart aches just looking at her. But Chris is still the same, not even blinking. Madam, I'm only following orders. I can understand Chris, actually. After all, Jason is that wonderful boss who ships employees off to Africa the moment they make a mistake, and besides, Chris's character in the book is defined by loyalty. But that doesn't stop me from being a little mad at the current Chris, so I march off to the restroom to cool down. Truth is, last night's hot pot upset my stomach. What I don't expect is that just as I step into the restroom, Chris follows on my heels, and only halts when he realizes I've gone into the ladies' room. Women come and go from the ladies' room all day. The moment they see the boss's assistant standing at the door like a door guardian, none of them dare go in. Which is why, inside, I'm baffled by the unprecedented silence. Because we're at the office, Chris doesn't dare let much show on his face, he can only spin himself in circles in his head. Angela was angry just now, right? Her cheeks were all puffed up. Books say girls get mad mostly out of jealousy. Is it because I was standing too close to the madam just now? Books also say that when a girl's angry you should coax her, take her out to eat, to a movie, and give her gifts. What gifts does Angela like? I finish washing my hands and step out, only to see Chris, head lowered in thought by the restroom door. I stop short. He startles when he sees me, all his thoughts shattering at once, and can only cling for dear life to that decently managed cold face of his. Looking at him like this, and thinking of that icy robot from a moment ago, the contrast is probably something only I get to see. Smothering a laugh, I greet him, Assistant Jones, do you need something? He looks at me, face flushing as if mustering tremendous courage. Secretary Keller, are you angry? All right then. From the way he looked, I thought he was about to confess. I was overthinking it. This block of wood isn't blooming that easily. Still, the fact that he noticed my mood from that far away hits me right where I'm soft. Chris really knows how to press my buttons, in the best way. I shake my head to show I'm not angry, yet something like disappointment flickers in Chris's eyes. Excuse me? You want me to be angry? Silently, I sigh. Sticking to the philosophy that wood won't blossom unless you water it, I decide to take the initiative. Assistant Jones, are you free to have dinner sometime this week? A few days later. Chris and I meet at a mall. Everything would be perfect, if only the heroine weren't here. Dear heavens, if I've committed a crime, let the law punish me. Don't have Jason order me to go shopping with his wife, and make Chris chaperone us. The pink bubbles I've been daydreaming all week pop beneath Jason's single jab. If not for the extra pay, I might have gone for his throat already. Chris trails behind us. I don't need to look back to feel the low air pressure around him, and yet he doesn't dare go for his boss's throat either. We really are a pair of star-crossed, no, wage-crossed laborers. Wearing my professional smile, I turn to the numb-faced Susan and ask with concern, "Madam, is there anywhere you'd like to go?" Susan stops and looks at me, eyes vacant. "Can I leave here?" My smile freezes at once. "No. Absolutely not. If you leave, Chris and I will be packing for a multi-year tour of Africa tomorrow." I say nothing. Chris starts forward to exercise his robot protocols, but Susan sneers, "Forget it. You're just his pack of dogs." With that, she walks into a Western restaurant. Me, how insulting. Truly insulting. If not for the paycheck, do you think I want to babysit you? Today was supposed to be my sweet two-person date with Chris. I'm just a working stiff, why treat me like this? I'm furious, but to avoid flying to Africa tomorrow, I force myself to swallow the anger and turn to Chris with a touch of woundedness. Chris doesn't care much about what Susan says. What he cares about is Angela. Angela's been wronged. He instantly recalls that books say a girl who's been wronged should be comforted, ideally with physical reassurance, like a hug. He doesn't dare hug Angela here. After a moment's torment, he reaches out instead and laces his fingers with mine, his thumb rubbing gently, like soothing a kitten. The sudden flirtation startles me so much my eyes go wide. My grievance evaporates in an instant, replaced by a spreading warmth. The calluses on his palm tickle a little, but my face feels even hotter. As for Chris, forget it. He must have gathered every ounce of courage just to take my hand. He quickly lets go, and the first words out of his mouth are, "Secretary Keller, let's go find the madam." Fine. Since this block of wood finally made progress, I'll forgive that line. I step forward with a smile, not checking whether Chris follows, so I miss the goofy grin he's wearing behind me as he stares at his own hand. If I'd seen it, I would have taken a picture. Chris stares at his hand, grinning from ear to ear. Angela's hand is so soft. I didn't want to let go. Good thing I controlled myself. I'm not washing my hands today. Jason, let me go. I've already paid for my sins. Let you go? Susan, you can't atone for your sins in a lifetime. Why? I served 3 years. I have nothing left. Rachel has nothing left, she lost her life. 3 years inside is nowhere near enough. Chris and I stand outside the door, faces blank as we listen to the shouting inside. Here's what happened. Jason took Susan to a banquet. He watched, eyes cold, as she was humiliated in public, content to enjoy the show. When someone brought up her family, the years of suffocated emotion finally exploded out of her. Off to the side, Jason had a glint in his eyes he didn't recognize, pleasure. He felt that the Susan from years ago, proud and unbending, had finally returned. She was no longer that abject woman who knelt to him at the slightest provocation. Susan was done swallowing it, too. The moment Jason brought her back to the company, she started arguing with him. Which brings us to the opening scene. When Chris lays the entire story out for me, my face looks like this: Jason's got to be ill. He's got to be. Back then he despised Susan's pride, thought her brazenness unbearable. Now he wants that proud Susan back. He ruined the very grounds of her pride, for crying out loud. I can't help sneaking a look at Chris beside me, suddenly worried about how many decades by Jason's side might have warped his worldview. Sensing my glance, Chris looks back at me. Angela, are you scared? President Jones is very fierce. He frightened Angela. Jason? The argument inside rages on. Jason drags out the Clark parents to threaten Susan, ordering her to behave. If she pleases him, he'll help repay the Clark family's debts. Forgot to mention, Jason bankrupted the Clarks. Look, what kindness. Susan's agitated voice abruptly quiets. Tears gather at the corners of her eyes. She had forgotten she's still the eldest daughter of the Clark family. The eldest Miss Clark once loved the heir of the Jones family with steadfast devotion. It's just, Rachel, what a pity, it was never a love that ran both ways. Jason dislikes the way Susan looks at him now. Once upon a time her eyes were full of joy when they met his, now there's only fear, terror, and a thread of hate. He affects nonchalance, lips quirking as he straightens his cuffs. What's wrong? Miss Clark unwilling? Chris, don't stop me. Let me go in there and teach Jason the difference between being a person and being a dog. I claw at the door, Chris claws at me. Worried I'll rush in and pound Jason, he doesn't know whose side to take. He blurts, heat rushing to his head, Angela. My hand on the door freezes. Chris's grip on me loosens. I have a hunch he's about to bolt in the next second. So, faster than lightning, I whirl and grab him back. Maybe the move isn't very elegant, but when love is this close, I don't care. The toe of Chris's leading foot arrests mid-step, like a baby swan mid-ballet leap. Good thing no one usually comes to the president's office. Otherwise his persona would be truly wrecked. I let go and warn him, don't you run. He actually stands up straight, obedient as a lamb awaiting the knife. Well, didn't expect that. Those puppy eyes are good. I'm feeling thoroughly conquered. Angela, no, Secretary Keller, Chris stammers, rummaging for words in his head, but his tongue is tied in knots, not a full sentence will come out. I can't help laughing at him. When he sees me laugh, he abandons the persona and laughs with me. What are you laughing at, Assistant Jones? Smiling, I suddenly lean in and tilt my head to ask. He's caught off guard by my sudden movement, his throat bobs as he stares at me coming closer. I gaze into his slightly dazed eyes. They're beautiful. My gaze drifts lower. His lips are, quite nice, too. We stare at each other like that, our breaths slowly tangling. Chris's face is scandalously red, his eyes beginning to haze. I'm not much better. We're leaning closer and closer when Chris suddenly exhales, slips an arm around my waist, and draws me into him. His embrace isn't cold at all, if anything, it's warmly unreal. My palm slides up his back. Nice suit fabric. No, what am I thinking? In a moment this suggestive, how am I developing feelings for a suit? I'm sorry. My bad. Angela? Chris gently strokes my hair, the motion careful, his tone a little tentative. What is it? Sensing I'm not repulsed, Chris finally exhales in relief, then, as if something occurs to him, blurts out for no reason at all, do you like it when I hold you? Excuse me, how is a demure girl supposed to answer that? I'll die of embarrassment. Shy. So I make a snap decision and answer without the slightest hesitation, I do. Please. Who am I? I'm not doing that dawdling male and female lead routine. Chris loosens his hold a little, both hands still at my waist, eyes on me and undisguised delight in them. Angela. That Angela rolls off his tongue real smooth. Bet he calls me that in private all the time. What a repressed flirt. When President Jones hugs the madam, she always struggles. I thought, girls don't like being hugged. Chris starts explaining the question from just now. No need. Truly no need. Your president's sneer, sexual harassment hugs can't be compared to a pure-hearted boy's. If I were the heroine, I'd fight back too. And also, why are they your reference point? We're doing way better than that couple still stuck in their hell plotline. At least we're normal. Don't watch the boss and the boss's wife date anymore, it'll make you unlucky, I finish silently. Chris nods obediently, then says with perfect seriousness, From now on, Angela will teach me how to date. Help. How are you suddenly this smooth? Did you unlock some hidden meridian? Also, unless I zoned out just now, you still haven't confessed. Planning to mooch, are we? Fine. Mooch or not, I still agree to teach him how to date. That's right, at this very moment, I am officially the girlfriend of Chris Jones, all-purpose assistant to Jason, the CEO of the Jones family group. Don't mess with me, consider yourselves warned. Huh? You're asking how the two people in the office are doing? Sorry, that's not important. What matters is that Chris is stupid with joy. Right now, aside from grinning, he just looks at me and grins. Angela, hee. Angela, hee. Angela. I'm starting to regret it. I turned a cool handsome guy into a little silly puppy. Before I can say anything to Chris, Jason's voice cuts through. Secretary Keller, come in. The voice carries effortless authority. Professional instinct kicks in, I zip to the door, open it, and step inside. President Jones, how can I help you? Well, would you look at that, didn't know before I came in, now that I have, I'm stunned. Susan is reclining on the sofa, Jason's suit jacket draped over her shoulders, tears still glimmering on her small face. Her original clothes are on the floor by the sofa. And our President Jones? Black dress shirt with 2 buttons undone, red scratches along his neck, suit trousers once razor sharp now a crumpled mess. I don't need it spelled out to know what happened. Save me. Chris and I are outside being pure as elementary schoolers, and you two are in here playing adult games. The kicker is, I didn't hear a thing. Boo-hoo, kidding. Though shaken inside, I keep my face impeccably composed and wait for Jason to speak. Jason glances at Susan on the sofa and hooks a CEO-grade demonic smile. Go buy the madam some clothes. And pick up a box of contraceptives while you're at it. At the words, contraceptive pills, Susan's bowed head snaps up. Jason cocks a brow at her. What? Miss Clark wants to carry my child? You deserve me? Each word strikes Susan's heart like a blow. He said he wouldn't divorce. He said he'd torment her forever. How could he be so cruel? How could he, given my orders? I promptly grab Chris, who's just reached the doorway, and bolt. No way I'm letting my pure little sweetheart see this. Only once we reach the lobby do I slow down, panting. Chris rubs my back to help me catch my breath. Don't be afraid, Angela. President Jones and the madam do this often. I choke on my words. Oh, so you've seen more than I have. Chris takes my hand, looks at me with utter seriousness. I won't be like that, Angela. The determination in his eyes sends fizzy little bubbles of joy through my heart. Then he adds, I won't make you take contraceptives. I suppress a sudden urge to smack him, but he keeps going. If Angela gets pregnant, don't be scared. I'll take responsibility for you, always. Sir, we are nowhere near that stage yet. How did we get on this topic? When that time comes, Angela won't need to worry about work. I'll work hard and support you. Why is it that you blush when you hold my hand, but when it comes to this you're solemn as a judge? Chris, I've already decided what our baby's name will be. That night, I finish my shower and am just about to sleep when the doorbell rings. I'm puzzled. Who would come looking for me so late? I check the peephole. It's Chris. Huh? Isn't he supposed to be out socializing with Jason? Through the peephole, his face and neck are both flushed. His gaze is a little dazed. His suit jacket hangs over one arm, 2 shirt buttons are undone, revealing collarbones I don't usually get to see. Oh my. Showing up at my door this late, dressed like that, are you trying to make me commit a crime? I rush, not really, to open the door, and a wave of alcohol hits me in the face. Standing on the threshold, Chris sees me open up and gives me a goofy smile. Angela. I beckon him in, but Chris shakes his head, eyes guileless. Angela, I've been drinking. I don't smell good. I just wanted to see you. I'll go right away. Foul. Flag on the play, Chris. I dart forward, yank him inside, and shut the door in one swift motion. Showing up at my place at midnight and thinking you can leave? In your dreams. I settle him on the sofa and ask, how much did you drink? He's quiet for a beat, struggle flickering in his eyes. Not much. Which means quite a lot. Credit to him for staying clear-headed enough to come see me. I admit it, I swoon a little. Chris always knows exactly how to poke every soft spot in my heart. Stay here. I'll make you a sobering soup. He nods obediently and sits up straight on the sofa. I head into the kitchen to prep the ingredients, suddenly feeling like a wife waiting for her husband to come back from a work dinner. It's kind of sweet. A smile tugs at my lips. I start wondering if this is what it'll be like after Chris and I get married. Oh my, so this is what being in love feels like. I think I'm catching Chris's contagion. When the soup is ready, I quickly ladle a bowl. Before I can lift it, Chris slips in somehow and takes it from me first. Angela, it's too hot. Let me carry it. He brings it to his lips and blows to cool it. Sobering soup doesn't taste great. Bear with it. I'm barely done speaking before he takes a few swallows. I don't know why, but I'm suddenly focused on what it tastes like. Maybe I'm focused on what Chris thinks it tastes like. He licks his lips. No. Angela's is delicious. I can't help being happy, yet I also know he's probably just trying to coax me. You just want to make me smile. He finishes the bowl, ladles another, and at my comment looks at me earnestly. I've never had sobering soup before. But yours is delicious. I can't help asking, then what did you do after drinking before? He sets the bowl in the sink and starts washing it, still answering me seriously. Usually I'd just sleep off the discomfort. If it was bad, I'd go to the hospital. He says it so lightly, but I can't help feeling a stab of pain. The book says Chris ends up doing well later, but the Chris standing before me is a living person. He must have suffered plenty at Jason's side. He puts the bowl into the cupboard. Seeing me lower my head and go quiet, he assumes I'm angry and rushes to say, don't be mad, Angela. I'll drink less from now on. I look up at him, not hiding the ache in my eyes. I'm not mad, Chris. If you drink in the future, I'll make you sobering soup, okay? Chris nods, then shakes his head. No. That would tire you out. Help. Chris, could you stop being this sweetly attentive? I step in close, circle his waist, and hug him. Chris, you have to let this girlfriend do something for her boyfriend. I'll listen to Angela. There's a smile in his voice, he's clearly thrilled by what I said. It's like he never refuses me. There is one thing I'm curious about, though, how Chris fell for me in the first place. I think of how the male and female leads met, and then search my childhood memories. I definitely didn't save any little boy's life. Surely it's not that melodramatic. Maybe it's my personal charm? Doubtful, there are plenty of pretty girls in the company. While he's here, I seize the chance to ask, Chris, why do you like me? Nervous, because this man with the unusual brain circuits always moves me first and then leaves me speechless. Because, Chris suddenly hugs me tighter, his chin brushing the crook of my neck, breath warm enough to make my shoulders hunch. Angela is the only rose in my barren world. At this point, it's not just sobering soup, I've also taken over his lunch. He's busy and sometimes doesn't have time to eat, which I sternly scolded him for. And I declared I'd cook for him. So every workday at noon, employees watch the ever-impassive assistant Jones stroll into the office carrying a pink bento bag. Chris and I are dating pretty openly, even Jason can barely stand it. Their lunchtime conversations go like this, Jason, Chris, what are you having for lunch? Chris, President Jones, Angela cooked for me. He presses his lips together in a tiny smile, just a little bragging in it. Jason. Why does that damned woman Susan do nothing but infuriate me every day? Ever think of reflecting on yourself, President Jones? Whether out of jealousy for me and Chris or what, that damned man Jason actually decides to take Chris on a business trip, abroad, for a whole month. Me, I won't see my sweet, silly darling for an entire month. Couples in the throes of new love can't take long separations. I take Chris to the airport. With his suitcase packed, I fuss over him solemnly. It's cold in Country Z. I put in a few thicker outfits, remember to wear them. No wearing suits every day, you'll get sick. Chris nods. Eat on time, drink less. There are hangover meds and other medicine in the suitcase, take them if you feel unwell, okay? Chris nods. Watching this block of wood, I purse my lips, a little miffed. Don't you have anything you want to say to me? My heart pinches as I speak, tears glitter in my eyes. Wait, why am I this sensitive right now? I'm not someone who cries so easily. Help. Is this the love syndrome? When Chris sees the tears in my eyes, his own heart twists up. He reaches out, wipes the corner of my eye. Don't cry, Angela. I'll be back soon. Honestly, that only makes it worse. The moment he says it, my tears break formation and stream down. I hug Chris, bury my face in his chest, and sniffle. Chris pats my back to soothe me. Angela. Watching the reluctant pair, Jason feels a flicker of some nameless emotion, and for no reason at all, his gaze slides to Susan beside him. In that moment, he rather wished Susan would speak to him the way Angela did, but alas, Susan only stared straight ahead, with no intention of saying anything. Jason felt a little put out. Whatever else she was still his wife, how dare she say nothing at all? Susan, while I'm away you will behave and stay put, understand? Otherwise, you know the consequences, don't you, Jason warned. With this woman, you had to go hard, otherwise she'd never go soft. Susan drew her gaze back from the two figures embracing and looked at Jason, answering meekly, understood. Only then did Jason smile. He reached out and patted Susan's head. That's a good girl. What Jason couldn't see was the hatred buried deep in Susan's eyes. When the boarding call sounded, I finally loosened my hold on Chris. Sniffling, my voice still thick with tears, I said, Chris, you have to remember to miss me. Chris bent down and kissed my forehead, his eyes tender. I'll think of Angela every day. Chris, Angela cried. My heart hurts. I don't want to go. Angela, drowning in love and a little melodramatic. Jason, doesn't your conscience ache? Susan, he has no conscience. Jason. After watching Chris leave, Susan actually took the initiative to speak to me. Secretary Keller, shall we talk? I frowned, sensing complications. I wiped the tears from my cheeks and nodded. Jason had someone tail me. Be careful. I understood at once. After a moment's thought, I said, then, want to browse the shops? We headed to a crowded area, chatting as we window shopped. Anyone who didn't know what we were talking about would have taken us for best girlfriends. I want to leave Jason, Susan said, a candied hawthorn skewer in hand, as calmly as if we were discussing whether to eat barbecue or hot pot next. I said nothing and slid a bite of grilled squid into my mouth. Unbothered, Susan went on, sometimes I think he's awfully, Rachel, laughable. If someone with a brain looked into Rachel's death, they'd find plenty off about it. But he insists it was me. He doesn't love me, yet he wants to imprison me by his side forever. She abruptly fell silent, her eyes locking onto a roasted sweet potato stall in the distance before she ran toward it. I finished my squid and waited where I was, suddenly finding her very, Rachel, dear. But what she'd said reminded me, I've been so drunk on love lately I nearly forgot the plot. In the story, Rachel doesn't die. And Jason is about to have a change of heart. On this business trip he discovers Rachel alive in Country Z, confronts her, learns the truth, and, ignoring his deals, rushes back overnight. But Jason being Jason, he'll never admit he was wrong. He might be dying of guilt inside, but he'll never say sorry out loud. He knows that as soon as Rachel appears before Susan, the whole thing explodes. So he keeps Rachel imprisoned in Country Z. Only, Rachel, paper can't wrap fire. Rachel runs back anyway and tears off the mask in front of Susan. Seeing Rachel alive, Susan breaks completely, and the plot reaches its climax. Susan came running back with 2 roasted sweet potatoes and handed me one. Here, Secretary Keller. Heat warmed my palm through the skin of the potato, and I suddenly thought that without Jason, Susan would surely live happily. She took a bite, puffed steam, and continued, watching you and Chris, I finally get it, love has to be a two-way journey. Running alone is too exhausting. I learned that too late. She looked at me, and the deadness in her eyes held a glimmer for the first time. Angela, I really envy you. Chris loves you so much. I think, the first half of my life is ruined. But the second half, I only want to leave Jason and live out my days quietly. That hope in her eyes pricked my heart like a thorn. I used to think the lead's drama had little to do with me, that they'd march along their plotline regardless. Now I think, to hell with the plot. A girl like Susan, Jason doesn't deserve her. But then I considered Jason. The difficulty level is very high. So what's your plan? You still haven't divorced him. Susan suddenly smiled. What if I die? Excuse me? Young lady, no need to go that far. I opened my mouth to talk her down, and she clarified, I mean a fake death. I let out a breath. What do you need me to do? Steve says he'll help me. I want you to help make the show look real. Steve, right, the second male lead in the book, the one who helps Susan escape and ends up crippled by Jason. TCH. Another, Rachel, piteous soul. Out of kindness I told Susan, after you run, don't come back. Don't ever come back. Maybe I looked unusually solemn just then, because she blinked, then nodded seriously. I'll never come back. There are too many tragic memories here for me. Thank you, Angela. Come on, hot pots on me. Susan grabbed my hand and took off at a run. Watching her run, I realized, she's still that dazzling, unrestrained eldest miss of the Clark family. Susan wanted to pull off the fake death while Jason was abroad. These days I'd been helping her draft the plan and, for that, had neglected Chris a bit. When Chris video called, I was checking for holes in the scheme. Against a monster like Jason, you have to be rigorous. Of course, I'm not the kind of woman who forgets love for a plan. I answered the call. It was nighttime where he was, he'd just showered, hair still damp, bathrobe loose. Excuse me? Excuse me? With me not there, why aren't you guarding your gentlemanly virtue? Angela, why didn't you call me? Chris asked, a little aggrieved. How do I gently tell him I'm planning the perfect fake death for his boss's wife? Forget it. I'll tell him later. Yes, I really do trust him that much. I set my pen down, propped my chin on my hand, and looked at him. I was afraid of interrupting your work. Chris blinked at me and, still aggrieved, said, Rachel, if it's Angela, I won't get any work done if I don't see you for a day. Sigh. He gets me every time with the way he says sweet things so earnestly. Again I wondered, at which step did Jason fail to keep up with Chris's emotional education? I didn't find out until later, when I discovered a pink book in Chris's study. Turns out Jason lost because he lacks the spirit of study. To soothe Chris, I leaned close to the camera, puckered up, and went muah. Oh dear, how embarrassing. A kiss for you. I won't do it again. Will you forgive me, my big baby Chris? I blinked at him with soulful sincerity, just shy of hanging 2 teardrops on my lashes, though my grin was practically splitting to my temples. The corners of Chris's mouth were doing the same. Angela kissed me. I'm very happy. So I forgive Angela. Couples are truly childish, but I adore this brand of childishness. Suddenly remembering something, Chris sat up, eyes bright. Angela, I bought you a present today. The book says girls like gifts. He stared at me, excited, clearly waiting for my reaction. Blockhead, ever heard of the word surprise? I nodded. When you're back, I've got a present for you too. And I've got a grand gift for Jason as well. Everything was set. Today was the day Jason would discover Rachel. Ah, how I love the scene where he learns the truth, rushes home, and finds no one. At dawn, I slipped into performance mode. As usual, I went to Jason's villa to visit her. The Jones family's housekeeper opened the door and told me Madame Susan was in a terrible mood and asked me to talk to her. I entered Susan's room. She was sitting on the bed crying, and throwing me meaningful looks between sobs. Jason had installed surveillance in this room. We couldn't do anything suspicious. Madam, are you feeling down today? I sat beside her and asked with concern. She looked at me and suddenly smiled, just a little eerie. Secretary Keller, come shopping with me. She startled me, but I kept calm and nodded. She drove, insisting only the 2 of us be in the car. The bodyguards followed in back. Susan kept to the planned route. When we reached the spot, she turned to me, eyes wild with hysteria. Secretary Keller, I'm sorry. I froze, stammering, Madam, what are you doing? I whipped out my phone to call Chris. Too late. Susan yanked the wheel and floored it, the car smashing through the barrier and shooting toward the sea. It all happened too fast. The bodyguards behind had no time to react before car and passengers plunged straight into the water. They nearly lost their minds. If anything happened to those inside, they were as good as dead themselves. As the car sank, I held my breath, used the tool I'd prepared to blast the window, and swam out. Susan would have Steve's people. I had to save myself. To make the scene convincing, I really did put in the work. By the time I reached shore, I couldn't hold out any longer and blacked out. All I had to do was wait for the rescue teams. As consciousness faded, one thought circled my mind: my wooden Chris is going to worry himself sick. Susan and Angela are addicted to acting. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a hospital. Turns out that thing where the newly awake ask for water, it's real. My TV dramas did not lie to me. Chris was asleep at the bedside, head down, my other hand clutched in his. How long had I been out? Sensing movement, he woke at once, lifted his head, eyes red, voice shaking. Angela, you're awake. He must have come straight from the plane. He was still wearing the warm clothes I'd packed, face haggard, a shadow of stubble on his jaw. Honestly, my heart twinged. Business trips are exhausting enough without me putting him through this, but I couldn't help it. I'd given Susan my word. I touched his face and asked, "How's the madam?" He didn't answer. He picked up the kettle on the table instead. "Angela, I'll boil water for you." It seemed the plan had worked. I slipped out of bed and headed for the bathroom to check on Chris. His back was to me, shoulders trembling. He was crying. My heart broke. I stepped forward and hugged his waist. He went rigid and even forgot to turn off the tap. "Chris, I'm sorry for making you worry." I nuzzled his back, my voice full of apology. He shut off the water, turned, and wrapped me in his arms. At last he couldn't hold it in. "Angela, do you have any idea how scared I was? It's my fault. My fault for not protecting you." He held me like I might vanish in the next second. Hearing that, I couldn't hold it in either. Tears spilled over. "Silly Chris, why do you always shoulder the blame that isn't yours?" I tipped my face up to him. "It's not your fault, Chris." I rose on my toes and kissed him. Chris caught the back of my head and captured my lips. According to the script, he should kiss me hard and fierce, staking a claim, trying to prove I'm real. But even kissing me, Chris was careful. His mouth was gentle, the brush of tongues tender to the extreme. He was trying, with everything in him, to make me feel good. Help. I am in love with this kiss, and with this man. The next time I saw Jason, he was a different creature entirely. Bloodshot eyes. Cigarette smoke clinging to him. He stared at me, eyes murky, and finally forced the words out like he had to drag them through his throat. "What happened?" I dialed my acting back up, sobbing as I recounted what Susan and I had done, and clinging to Chris for comfort between tears. Listening, Jason could barely breathe. He suddenly slammed his fist into the wall, blood-smeared hand and plaster in an instant. A bodyguard tried to step forward, but Jason stopped him. I flinched, terrified, and clung to Chris's clothes. Chris held me and soothed me, not sparing a glance for his self-destructive boss. "Even in death, you'd leave me, ha 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 ha." Jason's voice was a trapped beast's. Red eyes brimmed with regret. He stared at his blood-slick hand, then suddenly cradled his head and wept. "Susan? Susan, why did you have to leave right when I learned the truth? I could have, Rachel, made it right. That little girl who saved me back then, I know it was you. You're so foolish. Why didn't you tell me? I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I'm begging you, come back." I don't know what Jason was thinking. If I had, I'd have said this: "Love that arrives too late deserves a righteous blow." Just then, Jason's friend, George, arrived. "This man has friends?" Trailing him was Steve, here to put on a show, strike that, who strode past George and landed a clean, satisfying punch on Jason. "Good hit." I applauded in my heart while outwardly shrinking in fear against Chris's chest, and Chris quietly covered my eyes with his hand. Jason went down under Steve's blow. Steve looked ready to pile on a few more, but George and the bodyguards held him back. He wrenched against their grip and rained curses on Jason. "Jason, you're inhuman. Susan's gone now, happy? Didn't you say if she died you'd set off fireworks and celebrate 3 days and nights? What's with this pathetic act now? Do you even know how she died? She drove into the sea. She can't swim. What did you expect her to do?" "Steve, shut up." George barked. Susan can't swim." Flat on the floor, Jason's gaze flickered. His Susan couldn't swim. The sea off a city is freezing, she must be suffering. He had to find her, he couldn't let her lie there alone and forsaken. Jason lurched to his feet and said to Chris, "Notify the rescue teams. Tell them to keep searching, however long it takes, until they bring her up." "Understood, President Jones." Chris scooped me up and carried me away from the scene of the mess. Truth be told, I wanted to keep watching the show. All the way, Chris pressed his lips tight and said nothing. Puzzled, I pillowed my head on his shoulder. "What's wrong, big baby Chris?" He looked at me with an emotion I couldn't read and smiled faintly. "I was just thinking, if it were me who couldn't find Angela right now, what would I do?" I arched a brow, curious. "And what did you come up with?" His arms tightened around me, eyes deep with love. "I would go into the sea to be with you, Angela." Fireworks bloomed in my chest. My Chris will never be like them. And so Jason kept dredging for days. They never found Susan, only a few unidentified bodies. I worried he'd grow suspicious next, but thankfully President Jones could no longer stand it. He told Jason not to neglect the company over a woman, or he'd let his own illegitimate son into the firm to compete for Jason's chair. What a noble family. Chaos everywhere. Jason didn't care. He kept searching for Susan. The sea off a city is vast, his Susan must still be waiting. He couldn't make her wait too long. Thus, the president's illegitimate son entered the company, successfully. George tried to talk Jason down. He said, the dead can't come back, even in death, Susan wouldn't want the living disturbed. If even Steve can let go, why can't you? What nonsense. Steve is the ultimate winner. Whether Jason heard any of it, who knows? Some time later, I got news of Jason's car crash. He'd been drinking at night, drove drunk, and hit another car. Fitting, in a bleak way, he'd once framed Susan over a car accident. In the end, he himself left this world and won. The Jones family didn't suffer much impact. Jason's mom started yelling about divorcing Jason's dad. Jason's spot was duly taken by that illegitimate son. George handled Jason's funeral from top to bottom. To be born into a family like that, what a sorry fate. At last I could message Susan, far away overseas. I wrote, Jason is dead. She replied quickly, heaven has eyes. Then, I'm going to marry Steve. Excuse me? She said Steve had treated her well all along and was helping her nurse her health. If not for Jason, maybe she and Steve would have been together long ago, but it isn't too late now. Her passing on a curve irked me. I huffed that she was clearly not my soulmate and plunged into the sea. She asked, hasn't Chris proposed to you yet? Chris has been busy starting a company. The illegitimate son wanted to keep him as an assistant. After all, Chris was a cultivated Jones family talent. But Chris said that with Jason gone, his task was complete, he could leave. He wanted to start his own firm anyway. Fine by me, I'd already quit, maybe I could snag a job. Besides, who doesn't want to be the boss's wife? As for the proposal? Chris probably wants to get the company set first and then do it properly. I'll just wait. Never mind. I'm going to him now. Worst case, I'll propose myself. Of course, I don't have that kind of courage. I'll hint. We were having dinner that night, perfect time to nudge this half-bloomed block of wood. Evening. Chris was piling food into my bowl. Angela, your favorite. I eyed the plate and didn't pick up my chopsticks. Playing casual, I asked, Chris, how's the company? He noticed I wasn't eating and looked puzzled, but he answered anyway. It's on track. Angela, what if we name the company Angela, how about it? I nearly spat old blood. With a name like that, people will think it's mine. Feeling impish, I teased, if it's called Angela, then the company is mine, right? He nodded without a beat of hesitation. I belong to Angela. Naturally the company does too. His love talk keeps leveling up. In a good mood, I took a bite, then said, you only say sweet things. He shook his head hard. It's not just words, Angela. He lifted my hand to his chest. Feel, it's saying it too. Under my palm, his heartbeat thudded, like it really was speaking. I couldn't help it, I gave his chest a squeeze. Oh my. The feel? Bashful. Chris's breath hitched, long-lost red climbed his ears. Angela, don't tease me. I whisked my hand back and pretended nothing had happened. As for the hinting, maybe later. What I didn't expect, was for Chris to propose. Yes, just like that. Suddenly. Even I thought it was sudden. After dinner he drove me home. Once the car rolled to a smooth stop, just as I was unbuckling, Chris said, Angela, let's get married. So simple, so plain, and it froze me mid-seatbelt release. I looked at him. He was deadly serious, eyes on mine, as he pulled a diamond ring from his pocket. I bought this in Country Z. It was supposed to be your surprise. So much has happened since. I wanted to wait till everything was arranged before proposing. He glanced at the ring, then pulled a contract from the seat's side compartment. But when you asked if the company was yours today, I wanted it to be yours now. I want to marry you. I don't want to wait another second. No grand proposal. No crowd of onlookers. No going down on one knee. Just the two of us, shoulder to shoulder. Chris holding a ring and a contract, sincerity all over his face, hands shaking so hard I flashed back to that company dinner when his chopsticks trembled beside me. I looked at the contract and smiled. This was so very Chris. I'll take the ring. As for the contract, I don't want it. You said you're mine, that's enough. I held out my hand, Chris bowed his head, hand still trembling, and slid the ring onto my finger. You are not romantic at all. What if I'd said no? I drew my hand back and eyed the ring as if displeased, but my eyes were already brimming. Chris wiped the tears that had spilled over. If Angela said no, then I'd keep proposing, until Angela was happy. That did it. My tears flowed. He is always this sincere, this solemn. But, big baby Chris, I said, suddenly solemn as I met his eyes and declared my delight, I like you so much. How could I say no? Angela, eyes wet and face flushed, Chris lifted my hand and kissed my fingertip as if it were the rarest treasure on earth. Thank you for coming into my barren world, my one and only rose. Extra, on Chris's feelings for Angela. In the company, Chris has always been known as the first person, besides Jason, you can't approach. Jason, even with that cold face, still has women throwing themselves at him. Chris? The women around him are mostly aiming for Jason. He got used to it. People said he's cold and loveless, married to his work, and, well, not entirely wrong. He lived in a world that held only himself, desolate, colorless, utterly alone. Chris assumed his life would pass like that, laid out by someone else's hand. Loyal to Jason? Not exactly. He was just completing a task. What Chris couldn't fathom was Jason himself, so hung up on Susan, yet forever pretending indifference and disdain. He didn't get it. Truly didn't. Even without dating experience, Chris knew that's not how you treat a girl. But what did that matter to him? He was only a spectator. The day he brought the notice sending Susan to prison, she glared at him through tears and asked, "Are you heartless too, just like Jason?" Was he heartless? Probably. After all, that heart had never beaten for anyone. And who would step into his barren world, anyway? Then came the sudden secretary recruitment, ostensibly to lighten Chris's workload. Only Chris knew most candidates were plants, people the higher-ups wanted to smuggle in. Sitting on the interview panel, he was dizzy from waves of clashing perfumes and stepped out for air. The door had barely closed when a girl ran smack into his chest. A clean citrus scent swept into his lungs and saved him. Frowning in chagrin, the girl backed out of his arms. Sorry. He finally snapped back to himself and looked down into her eyes, wide, flustered, unsure. Those eyes were unlike anyone else's. Overly beautiful, he thought, and at least 100 times cleaner than the roomful of women inside. Everything about her was overly beautiful. As if she'd been carved to fit right over his heart. Over his heart? The little deer that had never existed began to slam around in his chest, telling him he'd fallen in love at first sight with the girl before him. It might be the only time in his life. He glanced at her badge and saw the name at once. Angela. When Angela finally walked into the interview room, the little deer in his chest gradually calmed. Angela, and then Angela became the only candidate to land the secretary job. Don't ask. Assistant Jones has his ways. Assistant Jones, hello. I'm Angela, the secretary who passed the interview yesterday. Light makeup, a neat uniform, a smiling face. Hello, Jones, Chris. He stammered, stiffly sticking out a hand to shake hers, and let go at once. His usual composure? Gone without a trace. Angela didn't mind. Phone in hand, she asked in earnest, Assistant Jones, can we add each other on WeChat? Sure. He fumbled for his phone, unlocked it, and then remembered, he didn't have WeChat. Secretary Keller, let's add it after work. Thank heavens for his quick thinking. After work, Chris looked at the lone contact in his WeChat and smiled. For some reason, every time he saw Angela, he lost control of his words, of the heat in his face. Everything. Maybe, as long as it was Angela, his heart could move 10,000 times over. He didn't know how to court girls, but courting people seemed hard enough. Look at Susan, after chasing Jason for so long, she got prison for her trouble. Chris might have shadowed Jason for years, but he'd still learned basic ethics growing up. He knew right from wrong. So he wasn't learning from Jason. Instead, he spent a small fortune buying a book from a certain office love expert, 108 Things About Girls. When Angela agreed to be his girlfriend, the barren world inside him finally grew a single, unique rose that belonged only to him. The rest, you already know. As for that book he spent a fortune on, he almost passed it down as a family heirloom to little Eric Jones.